welcome to Chip in a Chair, your one-stop spot for everything poker. Today, my little railbirds, I want to talk with you a little bit about poker ploys. What are they? How can I use them? And why do they work? Well, in order to understand how to use them and what they are, you need to understand why they work. Poker ploys are basically psychological warfare. Now, why they work is because poker is actually about 80% psychological and about 20%, luck. And I'm going to throw in the donkey plays of people who are just completely oblivious to what's around them. People that they should be folding, but they just can't see the big red flags and they're just too stupid to see them. You know those players. So I put them in with that 20%. But outside of that, it's 80% psychological. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that it's not so important about the fact that what your card values are, okay? That only matters at the very end at a showdown, okay? What really matters throughout the hand is what your perceived value of those cards is, okay? What do I mean? Well, if you're sitting there with pocket sevens and you give me a perceived value of my cards of being kibbles and bits, the good old king deuce, garbage, okay? Well, you're not worried about your sevens. You're going to throw a bet out there, and you're going to keep throwing money out there. But if you believe that I have pocket tens, well, now you're worried about that. You're worried about the fact that your sevens are beat. I've got tens. I'm going to beat you. You're worried about losing. So it's the perceived value of what your cards are, not what their actual value is. That comes only when it comes down to a showdown. So poker ploys are meant to alter your opponent's perceptions of what cards you have. For example, have you ever been sitting at a table and you get ready and you make your bet, and right as you're making it, your opponent's sliding right next to you. They're just basically almost the same time you're putting yours out there. They're pacing you, okay? What this move does is it lets your opponent, or basically if this happens to you, it's your opponent letting you know they're not worried about you betting. They were waiting for you to bet. They want to call your bet. They don't care what bet you make. They're going to call it because they've got something. They might not. They could have garbage. But they're doing this to show you, hey, I have something. I'm not worried about your bet. I'm calling you. And I'm not going to come over top of you because I want you to keep betting. I want you to think you still have a shot. So by yes on that turn, please bet again. I'm going to call you. Okay? It might also freeze your opponent and actually cause them to check on the turn and check on the river because of the fact that they perceive now that they're already beat. They perceive you have something better, and you're just trying to basically set them up and take their money and get them. You're basically trying to wait for the moment for a check raise. Okay? So they might actually check instead of actually bet for the rest of the hand because they believe you got them beat. So it's a setup. Another favorite I love doing is another freeze move I enjoy doing because this works on multiple levels. I use it when I'm weak. I use it when I'm strong. I use it when I'm on the draw, and it works wonders. Okay? Let's say you're getting ready to make a bet. You start to reach for your chips, and I instantly reach for mine. Instantly. Like, right as you go for yours, I'm going for mine. Well, now what I'm doing is I'm watching your reaction to my action of grabbing for my chips. If I notice that you don't even hesitate, you grab your chips and you put them out there, well, now it tells me something about you. That tells me that you're not worried about me. You're not worried about the fact that I'm going to probably call that bet. You have something strong. You have something worth really putting money out there on. You're not concerned about it. And if I don't have the nuts already, now I'm going to probably put in the fact that you've got something pretty strong, probably better than what I have, and I might get out of the way. But now I know that you have something, and it was a way to get information. But let's say, for example, I do this, and you stutter. Okay, you fumble with your chips at that point. I go, because anybody who is uncertain about what they're going to do and is not truly confident in what they're going to do will freeze, will stutter in some way, shape, or form. They will hesitate, and that hesitation lets you know they're not as strong as you think as they want to be. They're not as strong as they're trying to portray that they are. They might still have something, but they ain't got the nuts. They have something that could very easily be beaten, and they're contemplating the fact that you might already have that draw that can beat them. So I'm watching what your reaction is. Because if you stutter on that, I now know, hey, I can probably come over top of you and take control of this whole hand right off from underneath of you, even if I had garbage, because you're not looking that I have garbage. Okay? I've also used it for a time, let's say I'm on a draw. Okay, I'm open-ended, I'm trying to catch that straight, I'm trying to catch that flush. Okay? I don't want you to bet. A lot of times when I make this move for my chips, and I've seen other people do it, they make their move for their chips, okay? The person that was originally going to bet ends up seeing that and then hesitates and then says, I'll check. Now, I had no intention of betting, but I stopped you from betting so I could get a free card. So then I'll sit there and I'll play it off and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to check too. I'll give you a chance to catch up to me. Good luck. You know, I don't have the hand yet. I'm on a draw. Doesn't matter. I did what I needed to do. I got a free card. And I'll use that same move if I already have the lock. Let's say I'm sitting with ace king suited and the flop came out in my suit. You know, all three. So I flopped the nut flush. Can't lose. No pairs on the board, obviously. And the board doesn't ever pair up at all. Okay? I know I can't be beat at this point. I know that. So I might still do that freeze move. And then when you check to me, I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to check back to you. And yeah, well, you know, I'll give you a chance to catch up. Because a lot of times, if people are giving you information, they're going out of their way to give you information, 90% of the time it's the wrong information. So you're not going to put me on that nut flush. You're going to put me on a flush draw. And then when the next two cards come out as spade club, you're going to figure, okay, well, your set of fives is great. You know, your, you know, whatever you might have is great because you didn't see me with that flush. Because I set you up to believe that I didn't have it and made you believe that it was safe to bet. That's why ploys are important. But ploys go much more beyond a single hand, and that's the other important thing to remember. It's not always about every single hand. Sometimes it's about setting your table up for a later attack. Okay? Let me give you an example of what I mean by this. Okay? If you're bluffing, okay, let's say you have an epic fail on your bluff. You tried to bluff, it didn't work. They saw right through it. Okay. Well, remember everything you did. Remember if your hand stuttered a little bit when you were reaching for your chips. Remember if you were staring more at the flop and you were continually nervously checking your cards. You were continually looking around at the table. Every little thing you did trying to sell that bluff, remember it. Remember what you did. Remember if you're breathing heavy, okay? The reason why is, let's say, you know, a half hour later, you get the nuts. For example, let's say a half hour later, you flop that nut flush. You can't lose. But you start doing all those things that you were doing, pretending, you know, that you did for that bluff that they saw, and they're going to actually remember, hey, he was bluffing last time he did this. He's bluffing now. I'm going to call his bets. And then at the end, they see what they were wrong, and that's why it worked. You set them up. But it wasn't right hand after hand, or right in that same hand. You set them up for a future attack. And another quick example of this is, I remember back at the Showboat, we were sitting there playing for, you know, several hours, because that's what we do. And, you know, there was a guy sitting next to me, and he had the waitress continually feeding him beer after beer after beer after beer. Didn't fail. Like, literally, by the time one was empty, he had another one in front of him. Since they were free alcohol, you can't argue with it. But you could definitely see the effects of alcohol on him. You could definitely see he was inebriated. His play definitely got looser, got much more reckless. And, you know, his girlfriend or whatever came up behind him, and she's like, look, you know, you won enough. It's time to go. Let's go. And he kept saying, one more hand, because that's what we do. One more hand, one more. So gets a hand, and of course, makes a very big, hefty pre-flop bet, as his reckless style has been doing. Gets a call across the table, and flop comes out. Again, he makes a big-ass bet, gets the call. Turn card, big bet, call. River card, he goes all in, and his opponent calls you. Now, mind you, he's very much inebriated, and his opponent's all nice and over there and hasn't really been drinking at all. You know, makes that all-in call, turns up his hand. Now, I don't remember what the hands were, but his opponent had a damn good hand, but it wasn't the best. But he turns it up. And the guy next to me, who had played this whole thing around, 180-degree turnaround. His demeanor completely changed. He went from being the reckless, goofy, stone cold sober as if he hadn't had a drop to drink, turned up his cards, boom. Scooped up that $1,000 pot and left the room. And the thing was, he didn't know who he was setting up, but he knew he was setting somebody up at that table to bite into that trap that he was just going to dump money onto the table, and they were going to get a big pot from him because he was being such a reckless, drunk player. Phil Locke did that at one point in one of the, I think it was a WPT event, he had done that early on in his career. Now, you can't do it all the time, but it definitely works. It's definitely about setting things up. So that's the key to remember. Your poker ploys are not just hand-specific. It's about the whole time you're at the table. So remember what you're doing, remember what they're doing, and learn how to use them. Use them in multiple things, too. Don't use the same ploy all the time for the same thing. Change it up. You don't want to be predictable, okay? And remember, how they perceive you is more important than what you actually have, all right? Now, I know we all remember the good old, that wonderful Sprite commercial from back in the day where thirst is everything. But we have to flip that around for poker, okay? Remember, in poker, thirst is nothing. Image is everything. Obey your image.